In today's episode of Rob Konrad Conversations, Devin Person.
I was just imagining, okay, what are these, different versions of how my life is just a little bit worse or a little bit better, or I didn't take this choice or I didn't take that choice.
In 2014, Devin Person decided to change his life.
That's the main question I get asked all the time when I tell people I'm a wizard, and they say, well, what does a wizard do? And my stock answer is, well, whatever they want.
And decided to become a wizard.
I have a day job. I get paid fine. I'm doing this because I want to do this. Like, this is, I am very aware of the privilege that I bring, and that's why I keep it passive when I'm on the subway. Mm-hmm. I sit on the train and I have a sign that says, "Talk to the wizard," because no one meets a wizard by accident.
A story of self-actualization, mindfulness, the search for a better reality, and, of course, magic. Join the conversation now.
Welcome to Rob Konrad Conversations. Conversations with extraordinary people that motivate and inspire, learn, grow, and impact lives. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon for a new conversation every week.
Here comes the sunshine and burns away clouds like they never were.
Hey, this is Rob Konrad from Switzerland, and some of my guests are easy to introduce, and some of my guests require a little bit of a longer introduction. But I cannot remember anyone who made it so easy for me. Today, I'm going to talk to Devin Person, who is a wizard. And if that doesn't make you interested in watching this episode, then I don't know. So from New York, bringing a little bit of magic into your life today, Devin Person. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you, Rob, for having me.
Thank you very much. So if you were to write a job description for a wizard, what would that say?
Oh, man. I think being a wizard is sort of avoiding a job description. I get asked, that's the main question I get asked all the time when I tell people I'm a wizard, and they say, well, what does a wizard do? And my stock answer is, well, whatever they want. Mm-hmm. A wizard is something that people understand because we know Harry Potter, we know Gandalf, we know the trope of a wizard, but it's not something that we have fully defined in the real world. In quite the same way that, a witch, people have a little bit more of a handle on what witchcraft means in the modern era. Mm-hmm. So my take on being a wizard is that it's about helping other people. Mm-hmm. I am not the hero of the story. I am a wizard in somebody else's story. And at the right moment, people happen to run into me, and I try and do what I can to give them an experience that makes them think about something a little bit differently, see things from a different angle, or just gives them that encouragement, that magic that they need to make that choice. And if that small experience just changes them by 1 degree, mm-hmm. then over time, those points are going to get further and further out on the line. And so someone could look back and say, wow, if I hadn't talked to that wizard, if I hadn't had that one encounter, I would be doing everything differently. I
see. So you've not been a wizard forever. So you decided to be a wizard at some point?
I decided to be a wizard. Exactly. Yeah. I moved to New York City 5 years ago, and I'd been living here for, I moved here in the summer, and then it was, as New Year started, I was looking around and saying, I don't know what the idea is yet, but this is my egg year. This is the year that I'm going to hatch the thing. And I took a whole year to sort of play around with ideas and explore and figure out what it is that I wanted to do in this city of infinite possibility. And by the end of the year, I had decided that I would become a wizard, and I would do a magic ritual to become one. And because wizards are often pretty old, I had a nice long runway, so I didn't have to stress too much about it. And I could just play around and have fun and figure out what it means to be a wizard. I think answering that question is the whole point of the project. And I really don't want to rush to the answer the same way that you don't always want to rush to the end of a mystery novel. Sometimes it's the discovering that's more fun than the knowing.
I see. Were you interested in like magic and rituals and stuff like that before? Was it something that was always part of your life, or?
Absolutely. I can trace it. It wasn't clear as I lived through it chronologically, but when I looked back with the wisdom of hindsight, I was able to pull out pieces and see how they fit into a pattern. When I was in middle school, my parents went to a Unitarian Universalist church, and the middle school curriculum was studying world religions. So Sunday, and Unitarians are not very Jesus focused, but we would get pulled out of the regular church service and we'd go and we'd learn about Mormonism for 3 weeks. And then we'd go visit a Mormon temple and see what their service was like. And then we would learn about Buddhism, or we'd learn about the Baha'i faith or Mormonism or Christian Science or Scientology or pretty much everything. And I just was always so fascinated by people's belief systems. As a child, I loved mythology. And I think I always had this understanding from what I learned in school that people have constantly thought they had pretty much figured out the world, that we've got a pretty good idea of what's going on, and we're always totally off. And so that doesn't mean we don't believe in, the consensus reality as defined by modern scientific method. Obviously, that's a pretty good map for the territory of our experience. But I was very skeptical of hardline atheism. I thought that saying you were certain that God didn't exist was a very cocky thing to do, as such a small piece of what we could perceive of as reality. And then more specifically in terms of magic, I always found it really problematic the way that people dismissed the history of magic, the history of ritual and religion. What we know about evolution and the way that cultures evolve, you can get some debris in the mix that gets passed along. You can have vestigial features, or you can end up with birds that have crazy elaborate feathers just because there was a sort of war and mating dances and they got wilder and wilder. But those things serve a purpose at some level. And if human societies that are trying to survive are going to spend all of their energy building ceremonial masks, going through elaborate rituals, doing all of these things, I was confident that they served a purpose, but maybe not the literal one that you would get from asking those people. Maybe the ritual is not actually keeping demons out of the body, but maybe there's some other purpose. Maybe there's something that is helping them heal or, stay cohesive as a group. And so I was always very curious about magic. And when I got into my late teens and early 20s, I was exposed to these ideas through comic books, actually. Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, and Neil Gaiman are all comic book writers that approached magic from a perspective that was very new to me. And then I read an interview with Grant Morrison where he was talking about magic not as being literally true, but as a way of using your imagination to interact with things. And if you trained yourself to see them, then you could. So it wasn't the idea that you say the magic words, you put the circle of salt on the ground, you light the candles, and boom, a demon's going to appear that's as real as your cat or dog that's in the room. But that over time, you connect the idea of making that salt circle, of lighting the candles, of performing these things, and you train yourself that you can start to get in contact with parts of yourself, or maybe spirits that are out there in the world, depending on how you want to see it, and really grow and change and get things done.
So it's a lot about, and I noticed this also when I was listening to your kind of public speeches that you have out there. It's a lot about defining yourself and giving yourself an idea to follow, and then following through with that idea. So you had the idea of becoming a wizard, you chose that idea, and then you said, okay, what do I need to do that? And in a way, magic could be for people what you just talked about. So it's about kind of imprinting an idea into yourself and then following through with that idea. And that just gives you the initial ritual in the literal sense to start doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. At its core, I think that magic is a methodology for creating reality. I think it came from people that were dealing with a lot of unknowns and odds that were stacked against them. We want to go out and hunt. We want to create a reality where we come home with game. If we don't, we're going to be very hungry and we might not survive. So we're going to, it's like a superstitious baseball player. We're going to wear that one sock and we're not going to take it off, and we're going to chant this thing and do that, and we're going to paint pictures, and we're going to, it's like modern self-help and positive thinking. You're drawing pictures of yourself shooting the animals or killing the animals you want to bring home. You're just trying to put those thoughts into the world and manifest them. And that's how it works at a small individual level. But then as you build up civilizations, the people who do the magic, who run the religions, are the ones that are literally, they're writing the operating system for the whole society. They're saying this stuff is taboo, don't mess with it. And some of that because those are bad elements that you don't want to bring into the culture, or they're foods that are a higher risk of disease. And so again, this is serving a purpose. It's helping you survive, and the culture finds the rules and taboos that work for it. But other times, I think on the other side of the taboo is the magic itself, and the people who are saying, okay, how do we tweak and adjust the operating system of the society? How do we play with the source code?
Mm-hmm. So when you decided for yourself to become a wizard, what were the first steps that you took, and what were the first reactions when you announced that you're a wizard now?
Yeah, let me give you a little bit longer of an answer for that, because I think it's important to start where the idea really came from. And I was working in customer service for a build your own website company. So people would be trying to upload an image to their site, and they would write in an email saying, I can't figure this out. And I would say, here's how you do it. I'm looking at people's sites all day long, and I'm seeing so many freaking life coach sites. Life coach sites, yoga people, meditation people were the worst. They would write emails in all caps. They're so rude. They're so angry. And I'm just like, wow, this person's an asshole. And I go look at their site, and it's them being a motivational speaker telling everyone how to find inner peace and, perfect your Zen. I just thought, what fucking hypocrites.
Complete mismatch of perceived reality versus actual reality.
Yeah. Is it okay for me to swear, or should I not swear?
Yeah, swear as much as you want. Go ahead.
Okay, will do. So I was thinking at first that I wanted to make fun of this. That I'd always been interested in the occult and my own take on it. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll be an occult life coach, and I'll be this, weird parody of this, and it'll be a comedy thing. And as I continued to sort of let the idea marinate in my mind, I realized that I would get really bored with that. If the punchline was always, crystals, not paneling.
Gotcha.
How long is that going to stay funny for me? How long am I going to enjoy writing blog posts or whatever content I'm making about that?
And it's repetitive after a while. You can only make fun of someone so many times before it gets boring. Yeah.
And I got to a point where I realized that I had a lot of weird systems and ideas and philosophies that had helped me do things, that had helped me manifest change in my life, get over bad habits. And I wasn't a perfect person, but I loved talking about these things. And I think there was some question that I read of, your passion is what you could spend all night talking about in a bar forever. Like that's, you won't tire it out. And for me, it was magic, which I kept actually somewhat private. And I realized that I needed to be vulnerable enough to actually try and help people, and actually put something out there that I believed in, and not hide behind this screen of comedy and irony. And if I was going to do that, I didn't want to be one of these people who's saying, oh, find the peace within. Where's my fucking triple latte? And is just full of shit. And I wanted to live it 24 hours. And then I think the real moment, and what's continued to be my dowsing rod, my North Star, how I find my direction when I get lost on the path, is it makes me laugh. Is when I have an idea that makes me laugh and I'm cracking up. And when I moved to New York, I moved into a renovated apartment in Bushwick, Brooklyn, where the landlords had thought that, you know, hipster kids would love if when you go into the bathroom and flip a switch, there's psychedelic party lights that go off.
Okay.
So this bathroom is built into the wall. You could just turn on cool multicolored party lights. So I would take once a week what I call the psychedelic bath. I'd listen to ambient music, I'd take a bath, and I'd smoke a very, very, very small amount of pot, like a single hit, and just let my mind kind of unwind and unfurl and see what. And that's where I really was brainstorming this, and just the idea of, oh my God, what if I just became a wizard? And I think there was a lot of times where I was in the tub by myself, Brian Eno playing over a computer, and I'm cracking up and just laughing at the idea of doing this. And I distinctly remember at one point thinking about doing wizard stuff on the subway, a very early version of what I do now. And I was terrified of it. I was like, oh my God, that's so funny. And I have to bring this into the world. But whew, that is terrifying. Like, how am I going to push myself up that hill?
Why was it terrifying? What was it? The part of exposing yourself with the idea of attracting ridiculous?
I think I was thinking of going on and doing some sort of performance on the subway car. I'm talking to and just the idea of just getting on a subway car and talking to a bunch of strangers, addressing them like that, or I'm also declaring myself to be something that doesn't exist within reality. So I thought people would challenge me. Shoot a fireball, turn yourself invisible. You're not a real wizard. And they would want me to break reality to prove that I was real. And so as I was thinking all of these things, I realized that I came upon this idea that, let's say there's multiple realities. And let's say there's an number of them. And so if we have a reality, if I'm in reality 0, we can go to my right and have a slightly better reality, +1, and one to my left and have a reality -1, slightly crappier. And I was just imagining, okay, what are these, different versions of how my life is just a little bit worse or a little bit better, or I didn't take this choice or I didn't take that choice. And I thought about, well, if there's an infinite number of realities, then there's one where I've already become a wizard. And of all the realities where I become a wizard, there's one where I'm the best, most awesome wizard that I could possibly be. And if someone was going to be able to reach across those dimensional barriers and hear my call, it would be that wizard version of me. Like they're the one that would be best suited. So I came up with an idea for a ritual where I was going to reach out across the barriers and contact the most wizardly version of myself and ask them for help and to sort of merge our deltas and bring us together. I think over time it sort of evolved into this idea of, from where I was in that moment, of all my future selves, there's a version of me that's on his deathbed and has done it, that has become this wizard and has lived this amazing life and been, part of the transformations of the 21st century, and now is having his life flash back before his eyes, and he's able to send magic back in time to me that would manifest as just keeping me on that path that leads to him. So when someone that I meet at a bar doesn't return my text, okay, great, that was not the right path to go down. Let's keep going on. If I don't get a job, that job would have led me astray. Like trust, having faith in the process. So I rented a rehearsal studio in Midtown Manhattan, and I lugged a whole bunch of crap there, and I did a magic ritual that was about thinking through, what would I like to become, and what traits would I like to embody, and how do I sort of invoke those and summon those into myself and make contact with this future wizard that I'm perhaps destined to become.
Why a rehearsal studio? That seems to be the least magical place I could imagine.
It's New York City, man. If you want space, you gotta figure it out. Like I had roommates, so I didn't want to do it in the apartment. I wanted to be able to chant loudly and to really go full bore on it. Okay. And yeah, it was great, except I only rented it for an hour, and I think I finished everything with 5 minutes to spare. Yeah. But I have a room that's got all these little tea candles lit, and so I'm trying to put everything away. I think I'm naked at that point. And so I'm trying to put everything away before some little girl and her piano teacher walk in to use the room. At some point, I spilled wax across the floor. And so I'm using a t-shirt to just try and scrub wax off the floor and get out of there. So that was fun. But yeah, so I just, I think as a modern wizard, we've got to use the means available to us, whether those are the symbols that we've grown up with or the technology that we have at hand. We're speaking across light pulses that span the globe right now.
Yeah, that's true. And so that ritual, what happened after that ritual? What happened to you after the ritual?
So, the normal thing that happens after a ritual is nothing. And in fact, one of the best pieces of advice for magic is the final step is forget about it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do a ritual and then walk around going, all right, where's that thing going to manifest from? Where's it coming? I'm ready, every morning waking up and you're like a kid waiting for the mailman. Is my present here? You've got to forget it. You've got to let it slip out of your mind, because that's how your unconscious works on it and the universe works on it. And then when you're least expecting it, it pops back up. So I went back to living my life, and I went on a trip down to Philly with a friend, and my knee got screwed up. I have a rare knee condition called pigmented villonodular synovitis. And
never heard that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have. It's crazy. And it plagued me throughout my 20s. Basically, every time I moved to a new city, and I never owned a car. I always rode bikes, and then my knee would swell up, and I would be pretty disabled. And
so is it some sort of some sort of inflammation in your knee, or what is it?
It's technically tumors in my knee.
Oh, okay.
That irritate the lining of the joint. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't really stand and watch a concert for a long time. Standing would bother it. If I walked too far, it would swell. And so every once in a while, I would have a swell, actually a bleed in the lining of the joint that would swell up. Mm-hmm. And I'd have to just stay home for, 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. Ice and Elevate, take out ibuprofen, just stay off of it. But this time I was in Philly, and so I really couldn't just say, hey, everyone, I got to go home. Mm-hmm. And so I was on it and just making it worse and worse for so much longer. And so when I finally got back to New York, it was fucked. It was the size of a grapefruit, and I couldn't leave the house for about a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I worked from home, and I was pretty miserable. And just really was treating it like a sick day, all right, I'm just going to watch TV and work from bed and just be depressed about it. And after 2 weeks of that, I said, this is not going to work. I can't do that. And I Googled my condition, New York City, and I found a doctor that had written a paper on it. And the last time I'd seen an expert, he'd said, avoid surgery as long as you can. The next step is, you've already had surgery once. This condition's like a weed. It comes back. The next time you have surgery, they're going to have to pull out pretty much all of your joint. You're going to be, it's going to be not good. It's going to be a long recovery. It's going to just be the worst. So I went in thinking I was in for really bad news. And I go see this doctor that was familiar with my condition. He's a specialist. And he tells me actually that he's not going to do surgery, that they are running a trial for an experimental medication that they've had good results with, and it's helped people with my condition, but he has to tell me it has an effect. And he does not say side effect, because it happens to everyone who takes the medication. It's going to turn all of my hair white. And
there you go.
don't think he'd ever seen anyone get so thrilled by the idea of that side effect. I think that was a thing that, middle-aged men were bemoaning and, oh no, it's going to be awful for me. And I was just over the moon. I was disappointed when he said if I went off the meds, it would go back.
Oh, okay, so it's not permanent.
It's not permanent. But so that to me was just such an amazing moment of the universe answering my call. I had been prepared to just wait it out and say, I'm going to be a wizard and I'm going to do what I got to do. And, if I don't have the white beard, okay, whatever, that's fine. Wizards, I'm a modern wizard. I'm a different kind of wizard. I'll figure it out. But I got put on the medication, and that really was a transformation. I literally watched my hair change day by day, my eyelashes, my skin tone lightened, everything just went white or blonde.
Wow, okay. There you go. That's amazing, okay. So it's, in a way, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's exactly the way that I sort of see, magic is if you have a task in front of you where some things are in your control and some things aren't, then you can do what you can, but it's hard to keep your spirits up when you feel just subjected to the whims of fate, whether that's dating or trying to find a job or a creative project. And magic is a way to sit down and have a kickoff meeting and say, this is where I'd like to go, but it's not about rigidity and control and just forcing in that direction no matter what. It's about setting off in that direction, and then the universe the winds of fate will blow you, and maybe you'll end up someplace better than you thought you were going in the first place. And that, I think, is the dance that we do with magic, where you have to be open to that. It's like sailing. You can set the course, but the winds might blow you, and you end up on some other island, and maybe that's the island that you're meant to check out.
Or there might be no wind at all.
Or there might be no one at all. You might, go around in circles. But in my experience, that tends not to happen all that much.
Yeah. That's what surprised me the most, to be honest. When I was reading about you and what you were saying, it's a lot less woo-woo than I expected it to be, because you talk a lot about it's in a way it's the magic you talk about is a lot like are you familiar with Napoleon Hill?
Yes, yeah. I'm thinking
this kind of philosophy where you basically you set your goals, you believe in something, you set your mind on that goal, on the vision that you have, and then you just wait for it to happen in a way. And by doing so, you will kind of invite things to happen into your life, and you might be a little bit more aware of these things, and you might follow through a little bit more than you would have otherwise done so. And that's it. And the other parts that you talked about, like the magic that we see in like novels like Harry Potter or which are incredibly popular. So it's not at all as crazy as I expected it to be initially. So you're not that complete wacky weirdo that's talking about crazy stuff. It's actually quite relatable. At least I found it.
Absolutely, and I that's very astute of you to point out those things, because I think as a modern wizard, my job is to represent, to clarify, and to explore the mythology of the current world. And in American culture, it is these things like Napoleon Hill that is so entrenched that people don't think that's their mythology. But you draw a clear line from Hermetic and esoteric occult traditions of Europe, moving into the 1800s and stuff like spiritualism and theosophy, leading to what was called New Thought, Christian Science, and then that leads into positive thinking and Napoleon Hill and these other people that continue throughout the 20th century and get co-opted by Madison Avenue and become the language of advertising. Just do it. Think different. All of these slogans that you see on advertisements, if it's gotten so crazy, you watch a Super Bowl ad and it's a moving, triumphant speech about the human being and our infinite resolve and courage, and it's a sermon. And then at the end, it just says Jeep. And you're like, what the heck does I have to deal with fucking, like, there's a thing, that'll be about, a kid in a wheelchair and they're competing and they're overcoming, and then it's Doritos, and you're like, Doritos are corn chips,
Yeah.
What does Coke have to do with global friendships and coming together to smile? It's sugar.
Sure.
So that is the mythology that we're immersed in, but we're like the fish that ask, what's water?
Mm-hmm.
It's all around us. We don't see it anymore. So it's been very funny to me. I don't think I realized this when I started, but in the last few years, it's got clear. I love occult magic, and I have friends that are experts in grimoires and Renaissance magic and voodoo and all of these different practices. But what I do as a wizard is I try and get down to the marrow and find something that is simple and then relatable. Because if I'm just repeating, what Aleister Crowley said 100 years ago, I'm just speaking to the other people that have already read Aleister Crowley and talking to ourselves. I want to talk to people who haven't been exposed to those things and might not even relate to them, but if I can put it in a certain way, that gets across and that creates something new for them. That helps them see the world in a slightly brighter way.
So in a way, you are something like a life coach, or like a personal coach in a way that just has a different way of connecting with people.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's hard because I have a lot of issues with life coaching as a thing.
Yeah.
It's really well-intentioned, but there is so much snake oil in that field. And so much pyramid schemes. You go looking for life coaching stuff and you quickly find life coaches that teach life coaches how to teach other life coaches to be life coaches. And again, when I got my start, I was seeing people who were rude to a customer support agent and their website was awful and poorly written. And they're saying they're going to help somebody else quadruple their productivity and manifest the life they've always wanted. There's a lot of promise that I don't think people deliver on. So I do work one-on-one with people, but I only see clients once. I don't have recurring clients. I am not a therapist. I am not, I think there's a lot of value in those other things. Other people do a great job at them. I used to call it occult consulting. Now I call it wizard sessions. But I think it's about giving someone a single experience and then they can take it and run with it.
Okay. So how do these experiences look like? What would a session with you look like?
It looks a lot like life coaching, to some extent. It's a structured conversation. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's really valuable about life coaching is that we feel guilty about talking about ourselves in a social context too much. I mean, obviously, it's a very narcissistic world these days. We're happy to talk about ourselves. Here I am being interviewed. But when someone's out with friends, they can say, oh, yeah, I want to work on this screenplay, but they can't really monopolize the conversation. And then they start to feel guilty and they need to switch back and say, wait, but what's going on with you? How's work? Mm-hmm. And their friends also aren't empowered to push back and say, Sarah, we've heard you talk about the screenplay 100 times. When can we see a draft? When can we see a first page? Like what are you doing with it? And so having a conversation where I listen to somebody else, they have to do the work of thinking, what do they want to talk to a wizard about? And then I ask questions and I probe and I give them exercises and we find a way to sort of map out where they are right now and where they would like to be. Mm-hmm. Now, at that point, I think what is an issue I see with a lot of the self-help movement is they don't recognize that people are already at their max capacity. Mm-hmm. People are fucking busy. It's an overwhelming world. You've got email and text and kids and, work and 100 other things. And then you go read a list that says 10 things to make your life better. 1 is a meditation practice. 2 is going vegan. 3 is learn another language. Go to the gym. It's like, you're never going to fit all that in. It's too much. And somebody who is perhaps naturally wired to be more into those things. You know, of all of the people that exist in the world, the ones that are most able to wake up at 4 a.m. every day and do an insane workout routine and stick with it are the ones that end up becoming the motivational speakers who then go tell other people this is the secret. But the thing is, they're two different people. What's going to work for me is not necessarily going to work for you. So what I try and do is help my clients and people that I meet in the world figure out what's the least they can do. What is the smallest little thing that you can try? And maybe it's symbolic. You know, maybe it's just a gesture, but it's going to be something, and that can give you that momentum to find another thing and to, most importantly, I think, have fun with it. I think the big difference between my philosophy as I form it and Napoleon Hill is Napoleon Hill is very hardcore. He's like, just hold this thought in your mind constantly. Just never not be thinking of this. Just be constantly fixated on success. If I had a friend that was like that, I don't think I'd want to hang out with them. I don't think they'd be, you know, a very good date. I don't think they would be a lot of fun to go to the park with because they're fixated so intently on their goal. I think that the magic is the stuff that you don't see coming, that you don't expect. It's very contradictory because sometimes you've got to turn off the phone and buckle down and do the work. But other times it's when you blow off the work that you think you should be doing and you go out for a drink with a friend that you meet the person who changes your life. So you're never going to know, and you got to learn to trust yourself to navigate that.
I see. And why only meet those people once? I mean, wouldn't it be good to give a little impulse every, let's say, every month or every 2 months or every half a year at least to see where people go? So why only once?
Because I think that people need to do it for themselves. I think that there's a tendency, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of life coaches out there that have great systems for avoiding these problems, and you know, maybe I just didn't figure them out quick enough. But people tend to create a relationship where they project a lot onto you. So you give someone a little bit of homework, and then the next time you're supposed to meet, they didn't do the homework, and they show up and they're like, "Oh, you're going to be mad at me." I'm not mad. You didn't do the homework because you decided not to. That's your free will. That's your choice. And I've realized that as a wizard, my job is not to push people up the hill. My job is to point the way. And maybe not point the way directly. Maybe I'm kind of, you know, winking and joking and, you know, offering. The Zen master is going to sit there and meditate and you know, spit out riddles. And if you want to keep coming back to him, you'll keep getting new riddles and maybe you'll figure it out eventually. But he's not going to come to your house and wake you up and say, "Hey, you stopped coming by the temple. Are you still, can I sign you up for another enlightenment course?" And that's the thing, is I want to keep this as pure as I can. You know, I think one of my concerns is that, especially with the internet, if you look at a lot of people that are tarot readers or healers, or they speak to angels, they do Reiki, whatever it is, I see this pattern across all of them that becomes about internet sales. If you have two people that are identical twins and they're both life coaches, and over time, one of them is incredibly good at life coaching and one of them is incredibly good at internet marketing, I think over time, the person who's good at internet marketing figures out how to write the better posts, how to get the keywords, how to get the search traffic. Anything that the person who's a natural life coach does, that person can steal. They can say, "Oh, that person wrote this really great post. I'm going to rewrite it on my site." And over time, they're just going to get better and better. And when you look across the field, I think sometimes you're seeing the people who are the best at promoting themselves rather than the people who have honed the craft the most.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how did people react when you became a wizard? When you know, came out with the idea and talked about it? How did your family react? Did you get any negative reactions? So, Jesus, you're out of your mind. So what are you doing?
You know, what's so funny is, not that I've never had anyone react negatively at all, but I was I was going to do it, but I was so worried that I was going to get those reactions, that people were going to think I was crazy. And I remember I went out to get coffee with a coworker that I'd met at a work event, and we just had this kind of cool connection. We're like, we should talk more. You and I are similar. Like, we should chat. And she was saying, so what's, tell me more about yourself. And I had just passed New Year's, and that was when I said, I'm going to be a wizard. And so I said, I'm becoming a wizard. And she was so into it and so encouraging. And I was thinking, wow, okay, this, and I didn't have the beard at that time. I looked, I had brown hair, clean shaven. And that was great. And I started to notice that when I went out in the world, I could choose. Someone would say, what do you do? And I could tell them about my day job, or I could say, I'm a wizard. And when I chose I'm a wizard, it opened the door to greater connection and greater conversation. Someone would say, oh my God, my grandmother is from Mexico and is a bruja. And I grew up with her doing all this cool stuff. And I'm suddenly learning about this stranger at a bar's family history. If I told them about my day job, I wouldn't get to do that. And so the more I did it, the more I got excited and comfortable with it. My parents were supportive, but I think uncertain. They didn't get it because I didn't know how to explain it well, because I was sort of saying, I was like, I'm going to be a rock star. What instrument are you going to play? I haven't figured that out yet.
I see. Yeah.
The universe will supply it eventually. I'm gonna walk in this direction and we'll figure it out. So it was definitely interesting. I think what was really the coolest part, though, was I remember telling my bosses at my day job, and they were like, okay. But then over time, it sunk in. And so from that first reaction of, you're a wizard, okay, I have no idea what to do with that, let's keep talking about work stuff, to watching me transform, to seeing bits and pieces of it, it became a thing where people would send me a message when they saw a comic strip that had a wizard in it. When there was something about wizards in the world, they would connect with it and mention it to me, or they would make a joke where I realized they had ownership of this idea too. Like when I say it's a joke, I do not mean that in a disparaging way. I feel like it's beautiful to have more jokes in the world. There's a moment where I see people going from not sure what to do to feeling like they're in on the joke and they have ownership on the joke. They can't wait to introduce me as a wizard to somebody else. They tell their friends that they know a wizard. And that is where I think the idea spreads and grows and takes on a life outside of me. I'm one physical person, but there's all of these people in New York right now that have a funny story about when they met a wizard on the subway, or maybe some magic I gave them changed their life, and they had this amazing story about how it got them a job or did this or that. And I think a lot of people that know me, it makes their world more magical.
And that's actually the same experience that I had when I was getting a bit and researching a little bit about you. I had the same experience. After a while, it's like, okay, the first moment is funny. That's this guy claimed to be a wizard, so that's what kind of nut job is that? But then when you start looking into things, it makes sense. I can't say it doesn't make sense for me. It makes sense what you say. You're not doing anything harmful. You're doing it in a very nice, positive way. You connect to people. You change people's life in a positive way. So that's cool. And you look cool with the beard and stuff, and go for it. I mean, it's a great thing. And I had the same experience actually. So I think it's once you dare to be what you think you should be, whatever calling you have, then people will also feel that it's serious. It's not just a joke. It's not going to be a wizard for a weekend. It's something you've set on to do, and that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think your intro nailed it exactly, where you said, normally I've got to, figure out how to do an intro, and all I have to do is say, he's a wizard. My guest is a wizard. Like, you're excited to have a wizard on your show. And that's because wizard is an idea. It exists in the world. It's what what's his name? He wrote the book Sapiens, but he called it intersubjective reality. You know, there is no single thing that is a wizard in the same way that, you know, a house is a house, or a building is a building, or a bike is a bike. But wizard is something that when you say it, another person gets an idea in their mind and goes, I know what you're talking about. And condensed within that word and within that archetype is so much stuff. It's very dense. There's ideas of playfulness, of magic, of beards, of power, of mystery, of the cosmos, of demons, of, you know, all this stuff is condensed down into that. And especially in the modern world, where people grew up reading Harry Potter and connecting to that story as they, you know, there's a generation that basically grew up with Harry Potter. They were around his age when they started the series, and they finished the series when they were a similar age. So it connects with them on a personal level, on a cultural level, and gets something across. And I think once that connection is made, you know, this is, you know, just the world's simplest marketing ploy, then I'm able to do the real work, which my friend Kevin Marr put it really well, where he said, people show up and they're afraid that you're in a nut job. And then you start talking and they go, oh, he's in on the joke. He's not taking it too seriously. And then they can relax. Yeah. And they relax and they're enjoying it. And then a few minutes after that, they go, wait a minute. He's talking about real stuff here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's accessible. It's understandable. This makes sense to me. Even if they're the most diehard skeptic, atheist, you know, I don't believe in any woo-woo nonsense, they're resonating with it. And they're going, wow, this is some real serious shit. He has about this. And then it flips yet again and they go, oh, but he's telling us we can have fun. We can be silly about serious things and serious about silly things. That's all it is.
And you mentioned archetypes, and a lot of stuff that you talk about is really archetypical things, archetypical stories, and Harry Potter is basically, I mean, it's a great series of archetypical storytelling, and now there's Joseph Campbell. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
I love Joseph Campbell, absolutely.
The hero's journey, and that's what you mentioned initially. Even you're the wizard, literally, the person that's in the hero's journey. Gives
guardian at the gate, yeah, as Campbell says. There's the moment when the hero is, you know, they go out of the normal realm and they're going down into the mysterious unconscious realm, and the wizard, the hero, the old, you know, the guide gives them the thing that they don't understand then, but later sort of blossoms. And then when they're in the thick of it and they don't know what to do, they reach in their pocket and they're like, oh, yeah, I've got that magic coin from the wizard, and now's the time to use it. So
exactly,
yeah, that's.
Sorry. Just. Oh, can we? Sorry. Stop for 2 minutes. My little girl is talking. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just chill.
Sorry for the interruption. A little one was crying. Let me just.
Life exists in the interruptions.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we left off with the hero's journey in a way. So you're kind of the person who gives that impulse, who sets something that will later become important. As you said, no, I liked your example with the two curves moving away from each other.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense. And there's a reason why all the successful stories are always based around the same archetype of stories, and that's why people connect with it. There's something undeniably true to it, whether you can experience it rationally or emotionally, but there is some deeper truth to it, and that's why people respond so well to these things.
Yeah, I think the way that a friend can tell you a story about getting rejected, and they're saying things at one level, but you can read this deeper level where you're like, oh, you were hurt by this, and you're trying to puff yourself up and talk yourself through it, and this is what you're really expressing, even though you're saying these other things. And I think when we create, we do the same thing with the wider unconscious culture. So J.K. Rowling, I think, understands the story at one level as she's writing it, but then these deeper truths come through and resonate with other people that think that, she consciously planned out every single one. And especially now that the ideas are out there, there's a whole world of people writing their own fan fiction. So whatever those nuggets were, that existed down there over time, those get more and more important and sort of outgrow the original story they're embedded in.
Yeah, and there's a million interpretations of the same story.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really the important thing too, is we talked about advice and life coaches and that stuff, is that I can go to someone and I can say, this is the best thing that you could be doing. It's going to fix your depression. It's, all of these scientific studies have said that this is the thing that works. Please do it. And then the person does it and it doesn't work for them. This doesn't work for them. And then I could say, here's this really dumb thing where I want you to write the word sad on a rock and I want you to throw it over a bridge. And if you did a bunch of studies on the throwing a rock with the word sad on it, it would not pass muster. But for that person, it just happened to be what they needed in that moment. And they're going to be, telling someone 20 years from now, look, my life really turned around the day that I wrote sad on a rock and threw it off a bridge. And that's what worked for that person. So I think we all have to be our own wizards in a way. We've got to find our own magic, not just try and borrow somebody else's.
That's very true. That's very true. Especially nowadays where everyone, especially in social media, is just trying to be a copy of a copy of a copy of some ideal that's probably furthest from the truth in the first place. So
yeah, I mean, all of my stuff is baked in the laboratory of me freaking out, doubting myself, not knowing what to do, trying to motivate myself to actually get something done. None of I've never been someone that could come home and say, great, let's sit down and be creative and productive for the next 6 hours. I'm a master procrastinator. Being a wizard is a weird thing to decide to do. So I've definitely been uncertain and unsure of it. And there's a weird kind of eddy in the current that I can get caught in where I'm really having a hard time. And then I think, well, I'm a wizard. Isn't my whole deal that I can solve these issues? So now I'm having a hard time. And now I'm mad at myself for not being able to get out of it. But then I realized that I'm still a human being. My last name's Person for a reason. And it's going through those experiences that actually help me find the things that allow me to then help other people. The classic archetype of the wounded healer, if you will.
So, practical question: do you run around like this all the time? Is it just for when you are a public wizard? Is it? Do you run around in sneakers and jeans as well, or?
Yeah, so these are what I call my formal robes. I have a few other ceremonial robes that I wear for performances and rituals and things of that nature. I love adding to the collection, but because I'm a wizard, I sort of wait until I synchronistically meet costume designers and then it comes together. So, I can't just go down to Kmart and pick these off the rack. But then in everyday life, I wear what I like to call business casual. So I experiment with fashion. I have lots of flowing things that hint at wizard without putting a fine point on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a magic. It took me a little while to learn this, and people don't think about it a lot, where people are like, oh, are you going to go be a wizard at a Renaissance fair or this music festival? And I actually hate doing that. I hate being dressed up in an environment where it seems
artificial.
It seems artificial, and the drunk yahoos that are there think it's sort of for their entertainment, that it's for them to just yell Dumbledore at and have this limited interaction where it's so weird because I'm the architect of the joke, but then I can see them trying to make me the butt of it. I'm like, no, my friend, I'm doing this for a very thought out reason. Like, you yelling Dumbledore is not some original thing that you've come up with that you're springing on me. And so I really enjoy being out in New York City in the mundane places where people don't appreciate the magic and then they stumble into it. I think that's what really comes alive.
And you're not an actor, so it's genuine. What you're doing is genuine. So that's probably why people are making jokes about the actor without understanding that's more than acting. It's as you said, you're the actor of the joke. So
I thought I was going to have to learn magic tricks. I thought I was going to have a whole spiel. I really thought I was going to have an answer when people are like, "Oh yeah, you're a wizard. Prove it." And that never happens, except little kids. Little kids are hard to deal with because they have a different idea of how magic in the world should work, and they want me to turn their brother into a goat. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah. So what's the kind of magic you do in a subway? So I've seen 2 or 3 things from the little snippet that's online. But what are the things? What's the magic you do for people? Give me a few examples.
This absolutely crazy thing. It's a very powerful form of magic that I think has been lost to the ages, and I'm trying to bring it back, where I talk to people. Mm-hmm. And I have a conversation with them. And that's pretty much it. Okay. I talk to them. I answer their questions. I ask them questions. We chit-chat. If it feels appropriate, I will offer to grant them a wish. Mm-hmm. That is a ruse. I do believe that this is helpful, and I try my best, but it's a way to get people to get a little bit deeper, because we can stay at the same kind of, like, what, a wizard, how long have you been growing your beard for? And it stays very superficial. And when I offer to grant them a wish, sometimes they joke and they say, "Oh, I want to win the lottery." And I go, "No, you don't. Trust me, I can see the future. You won't be good with that money." And then they laugh, and then they, "No, but you've met a wizard on the train today. Of all the trains you could have gotten on, if you hadn't stopped and gotten that slice of pizza 3 hours ago, you'd be on a different train. So you've met me for a reason. My business card says no one meets a wizard by accident. Yeah. What can I do for you now?" And then they go, "Oh, well, my sister's been having a really hard time, and so I think I want her to feel better." Mm-hmm. And so then I go into the wizard state and think about it for a moment, and I offer them a boon being a good deed that the universe will kind of come together and do. Very synchronous. It's going to just work out for them. And in exchange for that, I give them a task, because there's no free lunch in this world. You got to have skin in the game in order to get those results. Mm-hmm. And I give them a pretty practical task. Sometimes it's very, symbolic, but sometimes it's as simple as, text a nice thing to 2 friends this week, or something that's just this little bit of positive energy. And my thesis is that the joy of just running into a wizard and having this cool experience, having that faith that something good is going to happen and being on the lookout for it, and then taking on this small task and feeling not helpless and impotent, but actually like they did something. Even if it's small, I think people get so intimidated by, well, I can't fix the whole thing, so what do I do? And it's a little thing. And I'm not aware of the results of this, because I, am not signing them up for my mailing list and following up with weekly phone calls. Sure. But I do hand out business cards, and every once in a while I do get a response from someone who says, "You know what, man? Like my favorite one was, I was in a ride share. So they have, do they have this in Switzerland?
Wait, where multiple people share one car?
Yeah, it's like an Uber or a Lyft or these different ride share services.
Yeah, we got that.
They'll match you with people going the same way. So I'm dressed full wizard because I'm on my way to go do a performance. And I'm chatting with the girl in the car, and I offer her a wish. And she's like, "Man, I've been job hunting. I just moved here a few months ago. And I'm trying to find a job, and I'm just having no luck. And I just really need a break." And so we talk about it, and she's a nurse, and she became a nurse because of her grandma. So I think about it for a moment and I say, all right, I need you to call your grandma tomorrow. Just have a nice little chat with her. Just connect with her. She's like, oh, I call my grandma all the time. I'd love to. And I say, well, tell her you met a wizard. He told to call him. And something good's going to happen soon. And she took a photo of us, and it was a great photo, so I asked her to email it to me. And she emailed to me, and then a few days later, she followed up, and she said, I can't believe this. I just got a job. I've been here for 4 months looking for work. No luck at all. 4 days after I meet you, boom, here it is. And that's a story that this person's going to have the rest of their life. That's a magical, that person's life is more magic now because not of really anything I did, but because of just this experience that happened by us coming together.
So what kind of other boons are these? I mean, I just had to type because I needed to look up the word boon. I've never heard that, but no.
Oh, sure. I did a lot of, myths and things like that. It's a fun word.
Yeah. So what kind of boons did you grant? Because it's. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? So you can't say, yeah, I'm going to fix your grandma, or I'm going to get your job. So there's nothing practical you can do about that. So what kind of?
It's a fine line that I walk because I want to play around with the assumptions and well, you're a wizard. Of course, you're going to know things and do magic, but can I actually reach out and alter the universe in a way so that something is guaranteed to happen? No, I'm not the architect of the universe, and I wouldn't want that responsibility, and I wouldn't want to take the fun away. I think the unknown is a big part of it. The waiting, the uncertainty is what makes life interesting. But I do believe that humans are pattern identifying creatures, and that when you look for different patterns, you can often find them. And so if you will, what's your favorite animal?
My favorite animal? Cats, I would say.
Cats. Great.
Yeah, I guess
so.
Cats, yeah.
I want you to look around for the rest of the month and notice when you see cats or cats on signs, cats in ads, and just notice that and kind of just check in with yourself whenever that happens and see what's going on. Does it feel magic? Do you notice them in patterns? Are there other things? Always black cats on Wednesdays. What is going on with that? And there's probably a lot of dog signs that you won't pick up on. But since I said this, you're going to notice those cat signs a lot more. Okay. And when I'm telling someone a boon, I don't say something specific. I don't say, wait 3 weeks and you will get this job, because that's a very fragile prediction. That's very likely to go off the rails. But if I'm telling them to just look for a little something that goes in their favor, something that works out, a nice little surprise, they're going to find that because something's bound to happen, and they're going to appreciate it. And I think that is where the real magic comes in from, is the looking for it and the appreciating it. And that's what allows them to have that more magical experience.
So it's not about making false promises or exaggerated promises. It's really about giving them a little push in the right direction, a little nudge that will make them look for something and then act on that again. Exactly.
Yeah. It's just a little bit of positivity that you're passing forward. That the same way that we all know how easily negativity spreads, and we could go out for drinks with a friend, and you and I share a car home, and I go, man, he was so annoying tonight. Weren't you bothered by this and that? And you're like, oh, well, I wasn't. But now that I think about it, yeah, he did kind of talk over us. And the next time you see him and he talks over someone, you're going, there he is doing it again. I can't wait to tell Devin what he was doing tonight. And we start identifying this pattern of bad behavior that we are now fixated on. That's very easy, but going in the other direction is a little bit more difficult, where you are noticing those positive patterns. And if that makes you a little bit happier and that helps you ignore something crappy that happened today, like next week, your kids are upset and you're running behind and you're doing this and that. And then just when you're, in traffic and you're so frustrated and you turn a corner and this cat runs across the road and you go, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you come home and you're in a better mood, and then your family's in a better mood, and that shifts the whole tenor of your day.
I see. I'll let you know. I'll keep my eyes open and I'll let you know what happens. I'm curious about that. Yeah. Completely different topic. I've heard you talking about psychedelics in another podcast.
Oh yeah.
So what kind of influence did or do psychedelics have on your mindset, the way you think, the way you see the bigger connection of the universe? Because my experience is, and it's funny, not only my personal experience with psychedelics, but I've talked to a lot of serious people in this kind of podcast here, and it's amazing that when and sometimes it's off camera, it's not always on camera, but sometimes even off camera, how people had profound experiences that really changed their life completely. And you wouldn't expect it from those people. You wouldn't expect it from the setting. You wouldn't expect them even opening up about it. But there seems to be something about it that psychedelics do with your mind that opens up a lot of possibilities in your life if you use it responsibly, of course. And there are also these theories that the human brain really started to develop in a whole different way when our ancestors started. The
Stone Age theory,
yeah, exactly. Finding mushrooms, and then something changed. So I was, given that you're very, you see things in the bigger picture, I was wondering how that's played into your development.
Sure.
If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I took acid at a very young age. I took acid in 8th grade, so I was 13 or 14, which is a weird age to take psychedelics because your perspective on the world is changing because you're just an adolescent and you're going through puberty and you're questioning reality and authority. And so I can never really tell what was a side effect of the drug and what was just, something else.
Part of your puberty development. Yeah.
But I think that I've always been questioning everything, but I think that helped me sort of shift into seeing through some of the bullshit and questioning the life path that was being set before me. And this, gotta get good grades and go to college and pick a career and go get, the job so you can get the life and then get the house and do the thing. And so I think I called bullshit on that at a pretty darn young age. And at the same time, I've never had, like a bad trip that was, so bad, but I've definitely had incredibly uncomfortable experiences and terrifying experiences and things that were just ordeals to get through. And so I'm cautious when talking about psychedelics because so much of the other dialogue I hear about them treat them like the balm to heal all ill. That if everyone just took mushrooms, then we'd be in this utopian society. And when in doubt, go do ayahuasca, and that's going to set you off on the right path. I am reminded of a friend who was a writer and was working a freelance writing gig for an astrology website. So people would write into the astrology website and she would look at their chart and then she would answer their questions. And there were people that wrote in all the time. And it's a paid service, you're paying, for the responses you're getting. And when we were chatting about it, she said, I don't know what to tell these people. You've written in 3 times this week. The stars are the same. The answer is the same. You've got to go do the work. The tarot reading, the astrology reading, whatever it is, can say, oh, you've got a challenge up ahead and you've got to look within yourself and be confident, but you're going to have to just go do that at a certain point. And sometimes I see psychedelics as people keep going back to the oracle rather than going out and living in the world and just doing the things.
Then listening and acting upon it.
Yeah, exactly. Personally, I like tarot, but I only do readings occasionally because they're really good. I get a really clear answer. But if I go and if I say, hey, cards, what should I do about this thing in my life? And they give me an answer and I say, great. Next week, hey, cards, what should I do about this thing in my life? The first time they say, be confident, start the project. The next time they say, wait patiently, the time will be right. Now I've got two contradictory answers. What am I doing? And I've seen that with the friends that go take psychedelics every weekend, where the answers they found the first time get murkier the more they double down again and again and again. So the more extreme psychedelic experiences that I've had, I had a really, really intense ego death experience on DMT that rattled me.
Okay.
That I really felt like I sort of connected with the idea of God and got a peek at what, what the largest view of existence that you can get is. And it wasn't all bliss and Buddha fields and love for me. Being all knowing and everything, to be all one is to be alone. To just, to be the totality, to be the monad is lonely. And I get why in the Hindu terminology, reality loses itself within itself again and again. It breaks down into illusion, into the illusion of separateness to play with itself. So the way that I sort of think about it is you've got a hill and you've got all of these seekers that are lined up going up the hill, and they're, we can't wait to be enlightened. And, once we get to the top of the mountain, we're going to find out the truth and we won't have our infirmities and we're going to be so amazing. And then there's another group of people that are walking down the mountain. They're like, yeah, it's nice up there. It's a view, but it's the top of a mountain. It's cold. We want to go back to the village. There's chickens running around and kids in the village and all these wonderful things. So I think that psychedelics are a wonderful tool and can be a great way to have a fun time and to enjoy some laughs and to learn something new. But at the end of the day, I think, we're alive in this world for a reason. And I don't necessarily go full-blown mysticism where reality is an illusion and we've got to return to the source. We left the source for a reason, and maybe we're here to explore all the possibilities that exist. I am a very complex being composed of trillions of cells and bacteria and all this other stuff working together for a brief instant. And yeah, there's so much to do that's just mundane in a way. To what is it? Before enlightenment, chop wood, do laundry. After enlightenment, chop wood, do laundry.
Yeah, I got you.
That's been my attitude recently. Is I think that experience, I felt like I did the cheat code and got warped to the final boss and not have the equipment and experience to actually do anything, and got my ass kicked and started over and thought, okay, cool. I'm glad to know that there's stuff at the end of the game. That's exciting. I do know that now, but I think I'm more invested in the long path than I was before. So now I do more yoga, and I've always had a meditation practice that I've leaned into more. And I think I realized that rather than, I met someone who was telling me that they did DMT, ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD, and peyote at the same time.
All right.
And I was just like, what could you possibly
gain from that
experience? Yeah.
How was their experience? How was their experience? I mean, it's
a person that honestly seems difficult to talk to. They say things that are very cosmic-y, but also very word salad-y. Like word salad is a thing that schizophrenics have, where, harmony, harm on why. Why is the question? They're breaking down words into these pieces that maybe sound a little bit profound, but are also kind of gibberishy.
Yeah.
They seemed like someone that had, been shattered, and maybe in certain audiences, will find the profound truth coming from them. But again, I like the world and I want to live in it. I want to be able to speak to people and have them pick up what I'm putting down. That's very important to me as a wizard, is that I keep at least one foot on consensus reality, because if I'm in my mind thinking that I've achieved enlightenment and I'm talking to God, and everyone else sees me as the homeless guy that's shitting himself in the corner of the subway station, that's not really what I want. So, psychedelics, I think, can give you a very profound insight into a largely internal subjective experience that, goes, if you go in one way, you get to the same thing as if you go out the other way. Like, I think that the external world and the internal world meet in the middle. But I think in our day and age, where we're so shunted into personalized experiences, where your web search returns different results because of your search history than mine does, your Facebook feed doesn't look like mine. If I tried to use your phone, I'd be like, wait, where's your camera? Everyone's experience is so customized and unique to them that I'm more interested in what are the communal experiences. What are the ways that we can bond together as a group? So that's actually what I really like about psychedelics, is the times when I took it with a group of friends and we all were finishing each other's sentences, more than I want to have this, how far can you go?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 5. Can you take 10?
Okay.
Have you done DMT? And there's this sort of individualist competitive nature that is something that I push back on.
I see. Okay.
But mushrooms are fun. Mushrooms are great.
But it can also be taxing. I mean, it's not always fun. That's what a lot of people seem to forget.
Yeah.
You can go the wrong way, and I've been there once or twice in the wrong direction, and it's not a pleasurable experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, I'm a vegetarian, but there's been several times where at the end of a psychedelic experience, I walked myself to McDonald's and I sat down and I had a Big Mac, because I wanted to just re-enter the mainstream. I felt like I had pushed myself into, some weird other dimension, and I wanted to let go of that, and I wanted to come back and re-enter the world with all of its flaws. These aren't great things. I think the world should be moving in different directions, but I wanted to connect and understand the people that watch the nightly news and the Ford truck commercials and then go out and get a Big Mac. And I wanted to see them and be with them and commune with them. And it was sort of the, I'd taken one sacrament and I wanted to take the other sacrament.
I see. What I was surprised about is there was an article about you after your TV interview that was very negative. I mean, there was some guy writing like, this subway magician is or wizard is like the worst thing that happened to the subway system. And I was
since Hurricane Sandy, yeah,
or something like that. And I was reading that, and then I was reading the comments below, and I was thinking, what's wrong with that guy? Why the negativity? Why is someone so aggravated by the fact that you're out there and giving people a good time and not doing anything bad? You're not annoying anyone, you're not stalking anyone, you're just being there, and if someone wants to interact with you, then they interact with you, and with not, then you just gonna continue. Why did some people get so aggravated by these things that they sit down and write this article and then put this outflow of negative emotions into such an article? Why is that?
I think it goes back to, I read that article and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, because, not everyone's going to always love what you do, and you've got to, get used to that. So that was good experience. And like I was saying earlier, when, someone's saying something at this level, but they're really saying something at this level. And it was so interesting because, I don't feed the trolls, don't, wait in the comments to slug it out. But I almost wanted to connect with that guy and say, hey, like, let's have a chat, because so much of the stuff that you were mad about were your fantasies about me. That there was things that I said in the video or that they showed in the video, and he goes, no, I'm certain that this is not true. And it's this other thing that I have an issue with, where as soon as the cameras are off, I'm begging these people for money, and it's this whole
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not true at all. I have a day job. I get paid fine. I'm doing this because I want to do this. Like, this is, I am very aware of the privilege that I bring, and that's why I keep it passive when I'm on the subway. Mm-hmm. I sit on the train and I have a sign that says, "Talk to the wizard," because no one meets a wizard by accident, and it's a fake like MTA subway sign, and I'm clearly dressed as a wizard, and then I wait for people to interact with me. Maybe I'll smile, maybe I'll crack a joke if someone's kind of staring. If someone's trying to take a picture without asking me, I'll like flash a peace sign and be a little bit goofy. Yeah. But I don't get on the train and go, "Hey everybody, a wizard's here, blah, blah, blah," because people are tired and people want to go home, and people have a right to do that. People have a right to have the experience they want on the train. And I don't want to live in a world where no one ever comes on the subway and plays guitar and, passes the hat because one person would find it annoying. I don't want to go to the lowest common denominator, but I also don't want to bug people who have had a long day that I don't understand, and their dog has cancer, and the last thing they want is to hear my shtick. I'm there for the people who are in the exact same situation. They've had a long day, their dog has cancer, and they're in tears because there's a wizard on this train who's going to give them a hug and listen to them for a minute. Mm-hmm. That's who I'm for. So yeah, that guy's article was fun. I think that's the whole tenor of that, or the whole tone of that website, is snark and talking shit. And the comments were pretty awful on that article. And I hope that guy's having fun.
Yeah, it's like you got the typical internet trolls. I mean, that's what you always have, and the keyboard warriors that probably wouldn't dare to look at you. But I was just surprised by the negativity of that particular article. I was like, "Oh, geez, why someone?"
So I have a theory. I'm really into gnomes. Gnomes have the pointed hat, the beard. They look very similar to wizards. And then I really just gotten into sort of researching where gnome mythology comes from, and I think there's a lot of fun stuff there. And I came up with this idea of internet gnomes. So we have internet trolls and trolling is mean-spirited. So internet trolling is when you are writing a mean comment or just provoking somebody, or you're doing a prank that's very malicious and someone gets hurt. Whereas gnoming are jokes that like we all kind of enjoy. My favorite example of internet gnoming was Walmart was doing a promotion with the rapper Pitbull, where they were going to send him to whatever Walmart page got the most likes. Like your small town Walmart gets the most likes, and you're going to go there. And Twitter found a Walmart that's in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, the most remote place possible, and they just deluged it with likes, so it just got the most. And then Pitbull and Walmart were like, "Awesome, we're going to do it." And they went there, and this is a town that nothing ever happens in. They're in the middle of nowhere, and they were thrilled, and it was just so beautiful. Like, everyone benefited. So, yeah, I like the idea of don't be an internet troll, be an internet gnome. A prank can be a very beautiful thing.
I see. It's funny about that you mentioned gnomes. I had very strange experience many years back when I was still at university. So I went to a really very serious business university. So very business focused, no esoteric stuff whatsoever. And I was in this
business school.
And I was in this kind of coaching mentoring group where like a former business leader would have like 5 or 6 students, and they would meet on a regular basis and share ideas, exchange ideas, and talk and whatever. And the mentor that I had at that time was a guy who was for the university. I mean, he went there and he was an executive at a big, I think at a big retail company, whatever. He kind of had a change of mind in the midst of his life. Went to the US, lived with Native Americans for a year. Then came basically back to Switzerland and became a coach. So they're doing this like family, I don't know how you call it in English, where you put family, like if you do family therapy, where you put people in different places, and then you
family systems therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have like the different pieces inside of yourself.
Yeah, and so stuff like this. So he was for the diversity. He was very different than all the other mentors. And there was one session where we sat together and talked about a few things, and somehow we came up with gnomes, like the topic of gnomes. And he said, like, I believe in gnomes. You're like, why do you believe in gnomes? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. And so long story short, like 10 minutes later, we were just sitting all there and crying of laughing because it was so funny. And the whole thing was just so positive. They're like, you see, that's the gnomes. They made us do this. Yeah. And I found this to be that just stuck with me because it's like these students from this business university, like the equivalent of Harvard in Europe, and then now this business dude, and then we're talking about gnomes, and then like, hey, I told you, they're real. They're sitting here watching us, and they're making us do that. Yeah. And yeah, I'm not saying I believe in gnomes, but it was a magical moment. That's how you can best describe it. That's.
We can believe in gnomes in two different ways. We can believe that there's, a physical gnome that I could catch like a mouse and I could hold up and it's real and you can see it and I can see it. And I don't know if those are real. I've never seen one, but we can believe in gnomes as a concept. You clearly seen a gnome statue someplace, or there's cartoons, there's books, there's, the idea of a gnome is something that we can believe in. And that worked its way into your conversation and made you laugh. So maybe that's how gnomes exist, is they operate on that plane.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. What happens after death? As a wizard, what's your opinion?
I think it's difficult no matter what happens. When I get into philosophy and cosmology, I'm pretty into the idea that there's really only two things. There's everything and nothing, and they coexist simultaneously, and we're sort of flickering between them. It probably looks like binary, 0 is the nothingness, 1 is the everythingness, and it's just flickering back and forth. So after death, I don't know if the thing that I experience as my consciousness merges with a larger consciousness and I get to just ride those waves, or I don't know. I think it's a mystery for a reason. I think that creates the tension that allows us to do all the things we need to do and have the experiences we want to have. But post DMT experience, I realized that even the most benevolent version would still be incredibly jarring.
Okay.
I've spent my whole life getting used to this form of existence. And so to die and then be like, oh, now I'm an angel and there's trillions of angels and I have to navigate angel hierarchies and angel politics. Like, that would be crazy. To be just born again in another life would probably be great. But, I'm sentimental. I like the life that I have. So I think I'm in the stage of, the path or whatever, where I'm still clinging. Like, I still very much am excited about the projects that I'm working on and the friends and things that I have in this plane of existence. And so even if there is stuff after death, I'm reluctant to embrace that change, even though it's always should.
Okay.
What do you think?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I've thought about it so many times, but it's something in my mind that I can't go further. It's just it reaches a point where I cannot come to any conclusion that would make sense on any rational or emotional level.
Yeah, my friend, you'll love this guy. He might be someone that you'd even want to talk to. My friend Ramin Nazer is a comedian and illustrator, I guess you would call him. His Instagram is great. He posts, it's like the far side for people who have done DMT. It's little comments that they just are so positive, and they're all about creativity and expressing yourself in the future and virtual reality. And they just are so wonderful. But he did a book that I think you can find online called What Happens After You Die, by Ramin Nazer. And it's just him exploring each of the sort of possibilities of, is it nothing? Is it heaven? Is it hell? Is it reincarnation? There is no such thing as death? And it's a really great book.
Okay. Yeah, it would be interesting to read. I mean, it's for me, the closest I can get to is, I mean, I don't believe in the, let's say, the whatever Catholic idea of heaven and hell or something like that. So that's something I think it's out of the question for me. So the question is there something where, I guess, everything is united, or is there nothing after that? So those are the two options for me. And I'm probably more inclined to say, okay, there's probably something where we are all connected, but who can tell? But it's either, I guess it's either one of those two things for me. But yeah, I'm gonna have a look at the book. That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, eternity and the idea of never-ending bliss. Actually, I can give you let me give you a little bit better of an answer. So I read this great science fiction short story recently called "The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect," and it's written in the late 90s, early 2000s. But it's basically like the singularity happens. This computer becomes hyper evolved, and then is programmed with Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. So it's not allowed to let harm come to any humans, and realizes that the world as it currently exists is too dangerous for humans, and so it reboots the universe and makes a sort of virtual universe where people are alive, and it caters to their wishes, and they can have pretty much anything they want. And the main character finds this to be absolute misery, because there's no challenge anymore. You want something, you snap your fingers, you got it. You want muscles, you snap your fingers, you got them. So nothing means anything. And eventually they point out that it's not really keeping human beings alive, because people are becoming non-human, because certain people in this world are asking the machine to stimulate their brain, the neurons in their brain, until the pleasure circuit's firing, and then just leave that going. So they become vegetables. They're just pure bliss, just going endlessly. And in an eternity, more and more people are going to take that option. And so I think that's the view that I sort of have of it, is that if you think of all of the matter in the universe eventually configuring itself into circuits or whatever, the most optimal form it could be, that's just triggering pleasure for itself. And if that spreads and the entire universe takes that form, you've got this whole grid of just everything just in this rapture loop, which I think ends up being nothingness. And that's the blank state of nothingness that then creation spawns from again. So I think of it as this perpetual loop, again, that switching on and off, where you start with nothing. Nothing's inherently unstable because you have nothing, so anything could happen. Anything's possible when you have nothing. And so something is bound to happen. And once that happens, it spirals until everything is happening. And everything, if it reaches its ultimate state, is entirely self-aware, at the widest possible view, when there's nothing else to see, creates that nothingness, and then it loops.
So let's go back to nothingness. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if our awareness that we identify as, where that goes in the grand scheme of things, but I think that process is always happening, has always happened, is outside of time. And the real fun, though, is not the biggest view, but all the complex layers that exist above and below us.
I see.
It's not the cosmic scale of the universe is very hard for us to deal with, but the scale of connecting with ideas and these things that are slightly bigger than us, or connecting with animals and plants and microbes and these things that are slightly smaller, is where I'm trying to find the joy.
So what's next for you? What are your next big steps, your vision, any new projects that you're currently working on?
So, well, this is a great question, because it taps into the very nature of my next project. So for me, as I exist right now in this moment, my next project is I'm launching a podcast, which is a magic ritual called This Podcast is a Ritual. But for anyone that's listening to this, it's already been launched and it already exists. So you can just go ahead and find that now. Search for This Podcast is a Ritual on iTunes and wherever podcasts are sold. But that's the big project that I'm working on, where it's a magic ritual between myself, the guests that I interview, all future listeners. And so I'm trying to have a very long view of time where it's not just people that listen to it, next Tuesday, or, someone 2 years from now that's at the gym catching up on the old episodes, but someone who's studying the 21st century and they're going through all the digital archives and they're listening to it. They're also part of the ritual, all the way up to this hypothetical future singularity being that can absorb all digital human knowledge in an instant. The way that you could download David Bowie's entire discography in half an hour, this thing's going to be able to go, okay, cool. I just saw every TV show that was made between, the invention of television and the year that I exist, just able to parse all of that at once. So the idea is that we all come together to work in this ritual space that the podcast creates. You and I are existing right now with all of the listeners that are listening now. Hello, you haven't found this yet, but you're here. We're in the past, you're then. There's other people that come later. And we're going to work together to all create a slightly better reality. I think there's a lot of pessimism right now. It's well-deserved. The world's kind of a mess. But I think, like we talked about at the beginning of this, the hunters that were gathered in their cave and they were saying, all right, we're all starving. Let's draw a picture of us capturing the buffalo so we don't starve to death. And they're the ones that did it and they managed to survive. I think that's the same idea. Is we're going to gather in this podcast and we're going to draw pictures on the wall of making it through the tumult of the current era and creating this slightly better reality that allows us to move on into a more optimistic future.
That sounds great. So who do you plan on inviting? What kind of guests? Is it from completely a mixed set of people, or? Yeah,
it's my goals for this are to connect with people like you and I are connecting right now. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to come on and get to know you. And, wherever we go from here, our fates are intertwined, and that's exciting. And have fun. I think it's supposed to be fun. And then I want to help people. So I want to talk to guests with different experiences, but each episode is going to be focused around a general topic, and we'll be giving out a spell in my style of magic that people can do to make, their lives slightly better around that one thing, whether it's trying to manifest love or learn about a divination technique or talk about psychedelics, just a little something. And so hopefully we will create a nice community of people that listen to this, that partake in the magic together, that give back, and we can start feeding into each other. So I'm very excited to nurture it and see how it grows.
That sounds great. I'll need to check it out. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, well, it doesn't exist yet, but it's...
Yeah, well, it's on iTunes, as you said, so there are a few episodes are out already.
So no, nothing's out. So for the listeners that are listening to this, it is ready.
Then it's okay. I got you. Gotcha.
In that moment, it's not, because November 30th is the anniversary of the ritual that I did 4 years ago to become a wizard. And we're going to celebrate that by doing a live recording of the initiation ritual for all of the listeners of the podcast. So this podcast, the ritual starts with an initiation ritual that you listen to, and then you're in it. And then you can listen to any episode out of order, doesn't matter. Just tune in to what feels right for you in that moment. If you're having trouble sleeping, we'll have a how to fall asleep episode, and you can pick that one out. If you're up, we'll have a how to get over a breakup episode, and you can tune into that one. And then it becomes your own, way to access magic.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll make sure to check that one out. Sounds very interesting. Amazing.
Yeah. So that's taking my focus right now. I'm trying to teach myself how to narrow my focus. I tend to be, if I'm the wizard's hat, I tend to be more here than more up here, where I've always got, 8 things that I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. And then, so right now I'm focusing on one thing and just getting this podcast out.
Cool. Perfect. So make sure to check it out. Your website is devinperson.com?
Nope, it's personisawake.com.
Person is awake. I'm sorry. Person is awake. Person is awake. That's right?
Yep.
that's also for everyone who is watching or listening. You got a few very interesting things out. You have a book that you've written a while ago.
Yep, I have a book called Mysteries of the Deep that we released as a magical artifact through a Kickstarter spell to raise $420, and we did, and we created a new reality where the book exists. And so the artifact copies exist in the world, and you can stumble onto them, but you can't buy them. And you can download the digital copy from my website. It's a nice short read that kind of gives you a good set of tools about how to think about the world and move through it. And then I've got a lecture on my website on wizards as an archetype. And yeah, there'll be more to come. I'm figuring out this stuff the same as everyone else is learning about it. So we're all working on it together. Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to read the book because I was knocked down by the flu the last days. But I've
fortunately, you could read the book in the future. So maybe
I will. Definitely, it's on my agenda for the next days. Definitely. And but I've watched the talk, and it's really very interesting. It goes a lot into, as you said, archetypes. You talk about Harry Potter, you talk about just the hero's journey, Star Wars, those kind of things.
Gandalf, Merlin, the Wizard of Oz, and I think that's it. Yeah,
it's really worth watching or listening to, at least. Let's put it this way. What's with the 420? Is that some sort of weed reference there, or?
Yeah, so 420 is for whatever reason. You can go read a Rolling Stone article about where it comes from, but I prefer to think that it caught on for whatever reason. But it's a magical number, so it's inherently funny. If I try to raise $2,000, that's a lot less funny than if I try and raise $420. The same way that if I'm Devin Person, modern mythologist and expert on practical positive thinking tips, that's a lot less fun than if I'm a wizard. So a way to connect with people with the magic and the symbolism that they're already having fun with.
Yeah, catch it. So make sure to check it out. It's definitely worth the time, and make sure to check out the book on personisawake.com.
Personisawake.com, yeah, and I'm Personisawake on Instagram, and I think you can Google me. I'm findable. And if anyone's listening to this, reach out. I don't know if it's in the episode, but we talked about at the beginning that everything leads to something. So maybe you're the something that comes from this.
Yeah, who knows? And I'll also make sure to leave the links to everything in the description of this video, definitely. So I have two last questions that I ask everyone that I talk to. And the first question is, this is a series of conversations with extraordinary people that are inspiring, that make a change in this world, that make a dent in the history of the world.
Very, very honored to be on this roster you've got. It's quite the list.
Well, definitely. I really like what you're doing, and you're inspiring. You're added twist to things, and there's a lot of positive energy coming from you, or positive magic, whatever you want to call it. And I've definitely felt I needed to talk to you, and I'm happy that you had the time and were open to talking to me. So thank you very much for that. So my question would be, who do you consider someone extraordinary that I might even talk to next?
Let me go. Can I give you three people, and I'll
go ahead. Sure.
So last year I did a magic ritual on the 3-year anniversary of my original ritual, and I didn't rent a rehearsal space because I'd made friends that had event spaces that were far more magical, and I had friends that knew I was a wizard, so I got them involved, and I kept it very loose, and I just wanted to I wanted to go to the next level. And then I met and fell in love with a wonderful poet who works magic in a different way. Her name's Lisa Ann Markison, and she runs a company called the Haiku Guys and Gals, the Haiku Guys. And they are a poetry company that send poets to events to write poems, specifically haikus, for guest typewriters. And it's absolutely magical. It's so cool to watch because people come up and they're, ooh, a typewriter. What's going on over here? And we're a poet. Can we write you a poem? And someone's like, sure. What do I do? All we need is a topic. Oh, I don't know. What do I think of? Love. Okay, that's a little bit vague. What's something more specific? And then the person opens up and then something. The poet writes them a poem and then gives it to the person, and then the person's just like, and melts and hugs and cries, and just it's such a cool experience. And they do this all the time. They have, you know, poets all over the world that are just giving these experiences to people, and it's really cool. I think it's such a powerful form of art. So that's one person who constantly inspires me. The person who just taught me how to, you know, be a human being that gets stuff done and takes my ideas out of my head and brings them into the world is an artist and organizer, Corinne Laperfido, who makes costumes and jewelry and is currently a huge advocate for living a zero waste lifestyle. She lives in a way that she doesn't produce garbage, and just has organized radical events. She used to run an illegal DIY strip club that was all about body positivity and was truly transformational. And you know, you don't think about crime when you're at a strip club, but it was so cool because it was every kind of person could participate. And so watching people who, you know, I saw a woman who weighed like 400 pounds perform, and it was just amazing to see someone who must, you know, be used to stairs and not feeling comfortable in their body getting to strip to a Van Halen song and just loving it, and the crowd giving so much love and support. And her current project is called Pussy Powerhouse, and it's sort of a feminist collective event that just so thoughtful and just so beautiful what she's bringing into the world. Incredibly hardworking too. And then I'd plug Ramin again. I think he is creating art about the process of creating art that really makes me feel less alone. I constantly seeing his ideas and realizing, oh, everyone has to struggle with those demons that are telling them, you know, not to work on something or they're not good enough. And what I think lacks so often in the life coach, transformation, self-help, mysticism world is that they're fucking funny. You know, they've got the message, but it's not just saying we are all one with the universe. It's putting a real perspective on it and giving you something that you can chew on, that you think about, that you remember, that adds texture to it. So you can find him at Ramin, RAMINNAZER on Instagram. And I've just watched his work grow, and it's something that, you know, it's going to be, I think the future is going to look back and see him as a true gem.
Great. I'll check it out. Thank you very much for those recommendations, and I'll dig more into that. The last question I always ask final question to also close this with you. What's your message for everyone who's watching this? What's the message that's closest to your heart that you want to, if you only had one thing to say to everyone who's watching this or listening to this, what would it be?
That's a great question. It's supposed to be fun. Life isn't always fun. There's things that are hard. There's things that are difficult. There's things that we don't want to do. But it's supposed to be fun. And we have the free will to find the fun and to create that. If you're arguing with a loved one, take a moment to pause and go, wait a minute, who cares about this dinner thing that we, you know, how can we reconnect and how can we make this moment fun and pleasurable and go find that? You know, I live in New York City. So many people just commute back and forth, and it's just this trudge and this drudgery, and they, you know, complain about how everything is busy and crowded and this and that. This is a city that people save up money for decades to come and visit. It's their dream to fly here and to go see things. You can take a time on a weekend to go walk around Central Park, to go to a museum, to go do one of those fun things. You can buy yourself an ice cream cone. You know, it's always there. So I think the final words I'd like to say are just what I have tattooed on my body. That is really the genesis of the whole wizard thing is, I believe in you. Your magic is real.
Devin Person, it's been 2 magical hours. I thank you so much again for your time. And let's see where this will take us from here. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much again. Thank you for watching. And in a few seconds, you'll hear about the extraordinary person that I'm going to talk to in my next conversation. But before that, I need to ask you for your help. See, finding people who inspire and motivate you to make a change, that's what's most important to me. But to connect you with these amazing people and to bring you conversations that you will not find anywhere else, I need you to become a part of our journey. So please get involved and leave a comment below with your own questions and maybe even tell me who I should talk to next. And if you know anyone who might like this conversation, then please share it, because I'm sure that they will like it too, and it will help to grow this channel and to make an impact together. And by the way, on my website you will find all current and upcoming episodes, including show notes and transcripts, background info, books and websites of my guests, podcast links, and much more. And once you become an email subscriber, there is always some exclusive content, so don't forget to sign up, and I'll see you in the next conversation.
In the next episode, Rob talks to Shannon Martinez. After a traumatic experience at the age of 14, when 2 men raped her at a party while she was intoxicated, Shannon's life spiraled out of control. She channeled her negative emotions into a white supremacist organization and became a neo-Nazi skinhead for 5 years, until she was taken in by a family that changed her mind and supported her in leaving the organization. Now a mother of 7, she fights against extremism, educates communities and institutions to understand how people get radicalized, and helps those who want to disengage from hate movements in any part of the political spectrum. Rob and Shannon talk about surviving trauma, how vulnerable people are the easiest targets for radical organizations, what it takes to turn your life around, and much more. Join the conversation now.